Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the March 6th business briefing. And we will move through our agenda here if it'll let me, the slides, there we go. A quick look, we'll be having updates from the city and school district, a chamber update, and then we'll be moving into our legislative conversation to talk about the chamber's engagement on policy and engaging our members in the elections this year. So we're going to start right off here with an update from School District 191. Thank you for joining us this morning. School board member Tyler, you're going to have to correct me if I get this wrong. Shaughnessy?
Saxy.
Sorry.
Basically S-A-X-Y would be the pronunciation guide. Saxy.
I have it spelled wrong on the slide, so we'll fix that next month. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to an update.
No problem. Nice to meet some of you virtually. I'm Tyler Saxy. I was appointed to the open spot on the school board early in 2025 for a term that runs through this year. I've been a Burnsville resident for almost 14 years now. Moved up from Madison, Wisconsin a while back. Have two boys who are currently in the district. So we have a 16-year-old junior at Burnsville High School and a 9-year-old fourth grader at Gideon Pond. So very familiar with the district. And yeah, in terms of updates, it's hard to believe we're in March. So we're kind of in the thick of budget season for the next academic year. So there'll be more coming out on that as it progresses and moves forward. And also starting to get ready for graduation and end of year celebrations. And I think the big thing to note with that this year is moving the primary high school graduation off-site for the first time and doing that at the new Lee and Penny Anderson Arena on the St. Thomas campus. I was actually just there last night to watch Wisconsin women's hockey, and it's a fabulous facility. And I think it's going to be a great new experience, I think, for not only the students and their families, but also for the district staff who like to help out. But we're in past years having it on site at the stadium, kind of asking them to do some things that was out of their wheelhouse and maybe not allowing them to enjoy it as much. So this should be a good move that way. Otherwise, day to day, I think obviously the big thing, no surprise to anybody, has been with the activity happening in our community to start the new year. There's been some definite impact on attendance. Attendance was something we were looking at and really trying to focus on district-wide this year, knowing the importance of regular attendance. And there were some pilot programs being done and some communication programs that were really having a positive impact. So it's been kind of a bump in the road here to see the impact on attendance, but starting to see it bounce back a little bit now. And I think in general, the administration and the staff and families and community at large have done a tremendous job of trying to adjust on the fly, do some different things. I know we shifted some resources to the virtual academy for a few weeks to support the need from some of our students and their families. But staff and everybody else have been doing a really great job of being flexible, trying to keep students engaged regardless of their circumstance and whether they're able to attend regularly in recent weeks or not, and then supporting them and offering some flexibility too as they come back into the classroom, hopefully, as we go forward. So that's been kind of the day-to-day one. And other than that, Dr. Daniels has been doing a nice job, I think, getting out in front of staff, also community opportunity to give her feedback and for her to really learn and develop her vision for the district going forward.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the updates. We really appreciate you being here.
No problem.
We will jump over here to Dan Keeley, Burnsville City Council member, for a quick update from the city.
Thank you. Hey, Tyler, I moved here from Madison too. We should get together for lunch and talk Wisconsin versus Minnesota. Well, good morning, everyone. Great to be here. And I'm glad we have a decent sized group of folks attending. And really a warm welcome to the new school board member. Look forward to getting to know you more, Tyler. I'm going to open up with kind of the heart of the city's organization, wellness and remembrance. As we approach March, the city is actually preparing for the release of Bureau of Criminal Apprehension investigative materials regarding our tragedy on February 18th of 2024. We remain certainly, as a community, deeply committed to honor the sacrifice of officers Ruge, Elmstrand, and firefighter Finstead. Because of this difficult period, the police department is transitioning to a multi-provider wellness initiative to ensure our first responders are getting access to the mental health care they need. And so it's obviously a tenuous time. Body camera video footage being released is really one of the most triggering pieces of this material that's being released. On the leadership front, City Council affirmed our city's 2026 leadership work plan, which covers safety, community engagement, organizational culture, community vibrancy, infrastructure, and sustainability. And this is a kind of guide roadmap that provides staff with a clear strategic roadmap to best serve the community throughout the year. Under community stability, similar to what Tyler mentioned, the city's response to the federal immigration enforcement activity, the situation is of high community need with calls for assistance to United Way 211 tripling, which is placing Burnsville among the top 10 areas in the state for aid requests. Our response is very much a team effort. We recently convened leadership group meeting with ISD 191, the Chamber, 360's community, and others to align our support. While the city has limited authority regarding eviction moratoriums, for example, we are working aggressively with Dakota County and local faith leaders to identify rental assistance for families. In other city news, City ISD 191, on January 24th, we convened what is typically an annual city council with department heads and ISD 191 Board of Education and Superintendent Daniels. It was a very productive meeting. I've attended these for 20 years, and we do a lot of talking, and there's a lot of things that go on between the community ed, ISD 191, and the city in little ways that happen throughout the year, but they're never really talked about or organized or published maybe in a structured, organized way. So we really want to capitalize on that. And I thought about that for weeks leading up to the meeting, and I worked on a proposal that I shared at that meeting, really just to spark conversation. I didn't expect any final decisions to come out of it. It was, I had it fine-tuned as a takeaway actionable plan with 3 areas of pillars of support. And I was quite blown away that many of the ISD 191 board members continued to reference the document. And ultimately, in the end, a committee of 2 council members, Councilmember Workman and Gustafson, and 2 ISD 191 Board of Education members, and then a member from each staff is going to get together and form a committee to act on this plan. So from my perspective, way beyond my expectations, but I was really happy to walk away from the meeting feeling like we have productive, tangible next steps after years of having wonderful conversations. But what are the takeaways, right? Let's not get together just to talk. Let's actually talk about actionable plans. On economic development, as everyone probably knows, the Met Council requires each city to come up with a comprehensive plan. We're now working on the 2050 comprehensive plan, starting with a 2050 vision. Certainly in the business sector, Burnsville is seeing significant evolution in land optimization. We're diversifying our local economy with the Planning Commission recently just recommending approval, and the council approved a new cannabis micro business at the former Burnsville Pistol Range. That is just one of, I think, 4 that have come through the process. And so these recreational cannabis micro businesses, retail stores are starting to pop up around the state, and Burnsville is part of that. We also issued permits for over $5 million in new medical and dental office valuations along County Road 42, which is great economic growth. We'd love to see that. And both our planning and economic development commissions have submitted, and we just approved this week, their work plans for 2026. And with the planning commission, they're going to begin the process of that heavy lift of the 2050 comp plan, which is a multi-year project, very expensive too. Under infrastructure, oh boy, we're all excited about more road construction. So Highway 13 and Nicollet Interchange, turning a sort of a high incident, accident, and fatality intersection into a grade separated intersection, is going to take a massive project over a year and a half. And unfortunately, it's going to require the intersection to be closed come spring for about 16 to 18 months. So there will be no north or southbound access to Cross 13 on Nicollet. The detours are, I'm sure, going to be as fun as we experienced last year and will continue to experience. But it's a painful process, but it sets us up for the next 40 to 50 years with some really good, safe travel. MnDOT has confirmed the construction is going to begin this fall. And most importantly for our school and transit partners, spring 2027, the closure will cause some disruptions. Because Nicollet is a high volume arterial, I can't get my tongue to go this morning on Friday morning. It will cause substantial delays in the AM and PM periods. And as a representative of MBTA, it is very problematic. So we have one of the busiest park and rides in the state at 13 and Nicollet. So challenging. Facilities and environment, we're building for tomorrow. I want to close with some great progress on our municipal facilities, police and city hall projects, moving into interior finishing, and launch the new design process for a brand new fire station number 2, which is slated for 2028. So we're in capital redevelopment phase of the history of the city right now. And in transportation, we've entered into a joint powers agreement to close a major trail gap on County Road 42. We work with the county quite a bit on making sure that these trails sections that have some missing pieces get filled in. So those that want to walk, bike, scooter, rollerblade, or whatever can continue to do so without having these trails sort of end in areas where they should be continuing. And a real environmental win, Lake Alamagna is showing some of the best water clarity results ever recorded, far exceeding state standards. There was an alum treatment put on, and there's a second alum treatment. Think of it as a coating on the floor of the lake to suppress the constant regeneration of phosphorus, and it's improving the water clarity, much to the pleasure of the folks who live on Alamagna. So lastly, we invite everyone, come to our State of the City on April 13th at the Ames Center and watch a video and hear the mayor and our chamber leader, Jennifer, present an annual recap of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Read up lots of information. So we'll move ahead here. Just some quick chamber updates. We have our next March event is our out to lunch at Smashburger. We do have a bonus business briefing next week. I'll tag on to what Dan was talking about with road construction. Next Thursday at 10 a.m. we'll be doing a virtual business briefing with MnDOT and the city to preview sort of what's going to be happening for road construction this summer in the city. So we'll get information and links out to you for that. You'll be able to register just like you did for today, and we'll record it. So if you can't make it, that you can see it. But that will preview the other projects that will be coming down the road. So then in April, we will be, I apologize. Wednesday, April 8th is not, it's the coffee break location is wrong here. So sorry about that. Valley Natural Foods is correct for the April out to lunch. And then we'll have our Lakeview Bank after hours. Next up, as Dan mentioned, State of the City, Monday, April 13th at the Ames Center. Join us for the first hour generally is the program. And then we have a great reception, business after hours style. City sampler, city staff is there with tables and information. So a great informative program if you're able to attend. So with those quick chamber updates, I'm going to shift gears into our topic for this morning. As we talked about last month, the Burnsville Chamber has 3 core areas: business advocacy, business education, and economic development. The other thing I will say is our next business briefing on Friday, April 3rd, will be an economic development annual update. So we will get an update from city staff, as well as our Grow Minnesota from the state, from the Minnesota Chamber, and our local visit update. So you won't want to miss that one. So diving in this morning, our focus is business advocacy, looking at our public policy and how we review issues, how we represent businesses, and how we connect our members with elected and appointed officials. In particular, this morning, we're going to be doing a quick run through on the Federation priorities. We did talk about those last month, so this will be a high level. We'll mostly be focusing on our local platform priorities and our engagement opportunities for our members coming up. So what is the Minnesota Chamber Federation? It's a statewide coalition of chambers that work together on core issues. And we have been a longtime participant with that group. Oh my, what happened to my?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, sorry about that. These are the highlighted areas: taxes, workplace mandates, environment, and addressing costs. Not sure exactly what happened in my slide here. We'll just move right through that and jump on to the local. So we don't update our local platform priorities every year, but and we did not do it in 2025. So we plan to do it this year. What this framework allows us to do is to be responsive, particularly during the legislative session, but also when projects come up, we might get a request, say from MBTA, the city, other agencies that say, hey, we're submitting for a grant or we're starting this project and we would like to have a position from the chamber. And if we have this framework in place, it allows us to respond in a timely manner. So the 4 priority areas that we focused on past: economic development, business climate, workforce and education, and transportation. I'll go into a deeper dive. The board has had some serious conversations about adding a 5th priority for this year around immigration reform. So where we've been on these issues: economic development, this is the framework that we've used historically, that we will be a proponent and resource for economic development issues which increase Burnsville's tax base through future-minded, responsive, market-driven development. We will support the development of market-driven housing. We'll encourage data-driven decisions. We'll advocate for economic development policies that invite business and economic development in Burnsville. We'll support the use of financial tools where redevelopment would not occur but for the assistance. And we'll support all businesses that will enhance the economic development, the economic vitality of Burnsville in economic development efforts. So I'm going to run through each one of these and then have an opportunity for feedback. Business climate: the Burnsville Chamber will advocate for a free market economy that provides a competitive marketplace for business innovation and success. We will in those efforts oppose any. Somebody came up. There we go. We'll oppose any efforts to establish local minimum wage ordinances or benefit mandates. We'll advocate to reduce regulatory burdens. We'll be actively involved in policy development, and we'll support efforts to reduce the overall tax and fee burden on Burnsville businesses. Next one is the workforce and education. The Burnsville Chamber of Commerce will be a proponent of strong schools and a prepared local workforce as a critical foundation for success of the business community and economic vitality of the community. And in that, we will strive to serve as a conduit between local businesses and educational institutions to ensure effective alignment. We'll advocate for public policies that encourage employer-led innovation. We'll support fiscally responsible local, state, and federal funding for local schools. We'll support continued efforts to increase local control of public education. In priority 4, in transportation, the Chamber will support efforts to ensure quality access to Burnsville businesses and future development through roads, bridges, and transit. And with that, we will urge legislators to enact long-term comprehensive funding for roads, bridges, and transit. We'll ensure safe and reliable infrastructure. We'll encourage a comprehensive plan for transit that includes getting people from transit stops to homes and businesses. And we'll advocate for the review of access to current and future local business and housing developments. So just back to sort of a summary page so we can talk about all of them and any feedback you might have. I'll give you a couple of examples where we've used this. For example, we've used this framework to support a school district levy referendum. We've used this criteria to support funding for intersections like Nicollet and 13 or other projects in the area. We don't often use it, I will say, to do public statements on things as much as we use them to build relationships and have conversations with our elected and appointed officials when issues arise. So this is the framework that we feel represents our membership base and our businesses, and that we can advocate best on their behalf when obviously we had a lot of conversations through paid family and medical leave. We continue to have those conversations to our local legislators and to anybody else that we can speak to try to reflect our members' experience in those areas. So with those, I love feedback from anybody. I have my partners in crime here in person or anybody on the call of areas that stand out to you that might need updating. And that could be something that should be removed or something that should be added. So I'd like to open it up for comment. Skip raises his hand.
Under business climate,
Yes.
I think we should have a discussion about chamber opposing any attempts for rent moratoriums.
Rent moratoriums?
Yes.
Okay. Duly noted. Any other, I'll also throw in there questions. If you have questions about a policy that's in there or something you think should be added. John?
So, Jonathan Cotter is with the chamber.
Minnesota Chamber, yeah.
Yeah. He was discussing possible changes to housing developments
Yes.
within the cities. And I was unsure if how restrictive that is, if that puts cities in a tight box of what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do.
I think that's a really good point. And we have, it's interesting because if you look back, we've had a historical perspective in economic development that pushed for market-driven housing. And part of that had to do with about 7+ years ago, there was sort of a unofficial moratorium on any multifamily housing in new multifamily housing in Burnsville. And the chamber actually advocated strongly to remove that because we felt like there was a sector of housing that we were missing in Burnsville. So we added language and advocated very strongly to allow for more market rate housing in Burnsville. And you've seen, I mean, that was changed and we've seen an explosion. To your point, John, there is a Housing First initiative and others that are looking to basically remove local controls on housing development. And there's a belief that contributes to the increased cost of housing right now. And so they tried really hard for a couple of years to actually just kind of remove local controls. And our chamber and others came together and really pushed back on that. Now, what we heard this morning on the Federation conference call was they're coming back with more targeted restrictions as opposed to just removing local control, being very specific. And I think you're right, it might be a pretty tight box. So it probably is something that we should look at. And as they said on our Federation call, a lot of local governments are opposing that. But what I said in our public policy committee last year, it wasn't local government officials, it was our businesses saying, again, these blunt force objects, when they try to enforce one size fits all regulations on communities that don't fit. Burnsville is not lacking for affordable housing or multifamily housing or anything like that. And changes in those restrictions would would be challenging in our community. So I think so I will add to the list, looking at I call it the housing first. That's the group that has been pushing. But we'll look at that. Anything else for anyone online that comes to your attention, that's on this list or not on the list that you think needs attention? I guess, and this applies to local, regional, state, and federal. You know, we represent our businesses at every level, so it can be anything. I'll throw out there, does anyone have feedback on, I think, like I said, our board is discussing putting together some positions around encouraging federal immigration reform. Looking at pathways to work, pathways to citizenship, things like that, because our system does not seem to be working. Any input or feedback to that?
I think it's something worth looking at, and I think somehow we've got to get a focus on how can we make it easier to get the path to citizenship, as opposed to deporting people that have been here for 15 years and have families and own businesses and everything else because they haven't ever gotten citizenship.
Yeah, and since I'm now personally involved in that issue, it is, so she applied for citizenship, but though her English is good, some of the questions confused her and didn't have an attorney present.
Right.
So, though she has no criminal past, she's clean as can be, she was denied citizenship. And she's been here for a number of years. I agree with Skip. There has to be a smoother pathway for those who have been here without a criminal past, excluding, traffic tickets, that they should be able to get their citizenship. I completely agree with that. I don't know what role the chamber, now the caveat, I don't know what role the chamber would have in that discussion.
I think the discussion at the board level is we do try to stay in our lane, right? Whatever that might be. And our lane is to represent and connect businesses serving Burnsville. And so I think on a representation standpoint, we've heard from enough employers that they're between the workforce crunch and just taking care of their own employees and things, they would like to see better. And I would call, there's pathways to citizenship. There's also pathways to work, right? And citizenship, getting citizenship is a whole process. And a lot of those paths do not include legal rights to work. And so I think what a lot of our employers are saying is, can they work while they're figuring out the citizenship? And can they legally work and pay taxes and all the things? And so I think this is an exploration for us. I don't think we have a hard and fast policy. So we welcome input this morning or whenever from anybody on.
It's almost like there's two tracks.
Yeah. Any other feedback from anybody online, thoughts or questions on immigration or any of the other topics?
I'll speak up. Jennifer, you know how I feel on this topic because I have talked about it for a while. I think as a chamber, certainly when we talk about business climate and economic development, putting labor into our workforce where labor is short is a critical and one of the most impactful things we as a chamber could do. Of course, the challenge is that, as you have educated me, is that this is driven at the national level, the federal level. My hope is, though, that we can figure out and put enough pressure as a chamber in the small voice that we have in the total picture to talk about how important this is. And not only is it important, but I think as I think about jobs as a whole, somebody asked me the other day about my thoughts on social ills. And I said, well, There's certainly extenuating circumstances for those not able to work, but for most people, I feel like creating good jobs is one of the most important things we as a business do, because jobs provide sustainability. Jobs correct the trajectory of families by providing education and food and housing, which impact generations, and they give people purpose. And so there's, to me, a very direct correlation to what we do as a chamber and the importance of good jobs for people. And I think that people should be incented to work. I do not think that we should be looking for more and more handouts to people that are able to work. And so somehow, to tie it to John's point, perhaps to tie how to make immigrants citizens faster, and tie it to jobs. To me, that is a really strong match for what we do as a chamber and strong for our society as a whole. Other than that, I have no other thoughts.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, we certainly will explore this, and as we always do, we work in partnership. So we'll continue. The Minnesota Chamber, again, it's not a state issue, but they are feeling the same pressure we are. So we'll work with them. But we also work with the U.S. Chamber and with our federal elected officials. So we will we'll work down this path.
Has the Minnesota Chamber come up with a position on the whole immigration?
The Minnesota Chamber started advocating for immigration reform before this conversation was cool, right? There was I believe, a white paper that they put out at least 10 years ago that said, look, folks, we're going to have a problem. Like, just demographically and everything else. If we don't get this figured out, the immigration system is broken. And if we don't fix it, we're going to have a workforce crisis, and we need to do something. But again, it's not in the purview of the state of Minnesota to reform it. And so they did the research and they did the advocacy, and they've continued to do the advocacy, but it's hard to get to the levers of power that have control over it. So yeah, they've been in this conversation since before, it feels like you're kind of shouting into the wind sometimes until things blow up, right? Okay, with that, I'm going to jump ahead to our member engagement. So like I said, part of this is on policy and issues, and the other part is on connecting with our members. As I mentioned, we'll have another these business briefings are one of our outreaches to our members to help them connect and stay informed on issues and have a voice in those issues. So our virtual business briefing next week on the construction update, our April 3rd economic development report, our state of the city on April 13th. Chamber Day at the Capitol is coming up on April 15th. We'll have more details on that soon. And then our business briefing in June will be a legislative wrap up. We usually invite our legislators or someone from the Minnesota Chamber, whoever's available at that time, to kind of look back at the session. Hopefully it's supposed to be done, and that they won't have special sessions hanging over their head. So that's this spring. Come in the summer, fall, we'll really be looking at our Get Out the Vote campaigns, and we welcome feedback on we want to inform people on where they vote, how they get information to vote, when they vote. And that starts with the primaries. I think it's August 11th is the primary. So over the summer, we'll be pushing for that. And then obviously the fall election. So we do a lot in the information space there. And then we try to put ourselves in the space of connecting our members with candidates so that they can make decisions on who they want to vote for. So we do our virtual candidate forums or meet the candidate events, usually in September. We do that for school boards, city council. We do that for state legislators. And so we'll start planning for those and then we plan to do a CD2, Congressional District 2 federal joint one with all of the chambers in the Congressional District 2 footprint. And then we do our in-person candidate mixer, which is tentatively scheduled for Thursday, October 1st. And then our fall transportation forum, where again, we kind of do, how did this transportate, we cover more than just construction at that one. We cover all aspects of transportation, but it will be a debrief on this summer's construction and looking ahead to the next ones. So obviously there's different ways our members can engage, staying informed, sharing perspectives, engaging with our candidates and elected officials. And so we just want to make sure we're providing all of those opportunities. And again, I welcome feedback on how we execute those, how we can better engage our members and make sure that we're providing as much opportunity for them as we can. Any questions on that process or any suggestions on execution? Sure.
So since construction is going to start on Nicollet in the fall,
Yes.
and they get ready for the next phase of Highway 13, Savage, Burnsville,
Yes.
would it be, if possible, better to have that transportation forum earlier?
Well, that's why we're doing the March one. The March 12th one, we're going to hit on what's happening in the fall
Okay.
and what's leading into that.
All right.
We like to do the November one because then presumably the summer stuff is done. Knock on wood. And then we can really focus on the next spring. But yes, that's kind of why we threw this March 12th one. And if we need another special report in between because we need to do a deeper dive, because Highway 13 is a big one. It's not just Nicollet. It is.
I know it's
right. So to your point, you know, if we need a special Highway 13 one or something, we might do that. But
because there's going to be
it's a good
roads
point.
that are going to permanently close
Yes,
on access to 13.
over towards Savage, there will be some access points eventually. Those aren't as imminent as Nicollet, but
Nicholas,
yeah, that's 2027. So other questions or comments?
I would just encourage us to continue virtual candidate forums.
Yeah.
I think those have been the best thing we've done for years.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We do need to talk about a moderator, but yes, we do plan to do them. I see a question online about CD2. Yes, we are definitely planning and already in conversation with the with our partner chambers on hosting a CD2 in-person debate style, if you will, or meet the candidates event. That would typically be in early October-ish, but we have to get through, and let's see, I don't have where's my chat? My chat isn't pulled up, so I want to see what make sure I answer the full questions. Yes, so yes, just like the one we hosted in Lakeville 2 years ago with Angie Craig and who was our candidate last time?
Tyler?
Yeah.
No?
No, Tyler was the one before. This was
Oh,
Big Sherman. I can't think of his name.
I can picture them too.
Anyway, yes, we had great
Yeah.
turnout and at the Lakeville Art Center. That was a great event. The challenge for Joe Tayrap, thank you, Laura. And that was a great event, great candidates, great conversations. Our challenge now is that we have a blank slate for this seat. And so we have to get through the primary. We don't even know who we're talking to yet. We could start the conversations before August last year because we kind of knew who the candidates were going to be. And now we kind of have to see how the field on both sides.
But all right, so I think question wise,
Yes.
we there's already probably a good idea what those questions are going to be to those candidates. You know,
Mhm.
and you know, no matter who represents the Republicans or the Dems, you know, the questions are going to pretty much remain the same.
Mm-hmm.
So at least we can start walking down that path, and perhaps to
Good
that
point.
extent is also get feedback from the chambers on what questions should be asked.
I think that's a good point, John. And I think what we can do over this summer is do some work on questions for all of our candidate forums for our, city council, school board, legislator will probably have to convene, a gathering of people who want to be engaged in that conversation and sort of hash through. And maybe we do a survey of our members as well. What do you want to know from the candidates? And we can try to, does that sound like a good idea?
Yeah.
Maybe a survey and then a meeting to hash that out?
Yeah.
Other thoughts or questions moving into this season of elections? Anyone online want to chime in? All right, well,
Who's one city council?
oh, Keely jumped off. I don't have that off the top of my, I should know
I don't
that. but-
remember either.
No,
I got,
Is Vince up? Vincent?
oh, you know what? I think it is. I think it's Gustafson.
Gustafson and Workman, that
Yeah.
sounds right.
Now that you say that.
I think so. So with that, these programs are recorded. This one is being recorded and we do post them on our chamber YouTube page. So if you miss something or you want to share it with someone, feel free. And hope you will join us for upcoming programs. I am